I think most people would agree with me when I say that out of all the Kardashian Jenners, Kendall Jenner's appearance has probably changed the most over the years. You can pull up old photographs from when she was younger and compare them with recent pictures, and the difference is pretty obvious. But that's not really what I want to focus on today. What interests me more is how Kendall has managed to completely transform her appearance while still maintaining this relatively quiet, detached public persona compared with Kim or Kylie. She isn't constantly creating headlines. She doesn't have the same level of business activity as Kim. She hasn't built an empire around makeup the way Kylie did. Even Khloe has spent years talking about wanting a more normal life. Kendall is different. She's mostly known for modeling, her family, her relationships, and, of course, her appearance. So today, I want to look at Kendall's transformation, the cosmetic procedure rumors surrounding her, her relationship with her appearance, and the uncomfortable question of whether her changing face has actually played a bigger role in her career than she would probably like people to believe. Before we get into it, make sure you like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, let's get into it. I've always felt a little bit sorry for Kendall in one particular way. Growing up on Keeping Up with the Kardashians meant that her teenage years were basically public property. She was constantly being watched. People commented on her personality, her appearance, her body, her acne, her clothes, everything. And compared with Kim and Kylie, Kendall was often portrayed as the quieter one. Sometimes people described her as cold, sometimes boring, sometimes distant. There was always something about Kendall that seemed to make people judge her differently. And then there was her appearance. Kendall has spoken publicly about struggling with acne from a young age and how badly it affected her confidence. She described feeling so self-conscious about her skin that she would sometimes cover her mouth while speaking to people. That's actually heartbreaking when you think about it. Imagine being a teenager, already dealing with normal teenage insecurities, while millions of people are watching you grow up on television. And Kendall has also spoken about how different her teenage experience was from that of her older sisters. Kim, Kourtney, and Khloe became famous as adults. Kendall and Kylie were growing up in front of cameras. That's a completely different experience. So I can understand why Kendall might have developed complicated feelings about her appearance. But then we get to the cosmetic procedure discussion. And this is where things become controversial. Kendall has repeatedly denied having significant plastic surgery on her face. She has acknowledged having Botox, and she has discussed treatments such as PRP, but she has pushed back strongly against claims that she has undergone extensive facial surgery. And this is where people online start arguing. Because if you put photographs of Kendall from different periods next to each other, people immediately notice changes in her nose, lips, brows, and overall facial structure. Now, I want to be very clear about something. A photograph cannot prove that someone had a particular cosmetic procedure. Makeup changes, lighting changes, weight changes, aging changes the face. Different camera lenses can make somebody look completely different. And professional analysis from photographs is not the same thing as knowing somebody's medical history. But that hasn't stopped the internet from analyzing Kendall's face frame by frame. And honestly, I understand why people are curious. This is a woman whose entire career depends heavily on her appearance. She became a model as a teenager. She has appeared in major magazines. She has walked for major fashion houses. She has appeared in advertising campaigns around the world. Her face is literally part of her job. So when her appearance changes dramatically, people are naturally going to notice. And that brings us to another interesting part of Kendall's story, her modeling career. Out of all the Kardashian Jenners, Kendall is, by far, the one most closely associated with traditional fashion modeling. Kim has built schemes. Kylie has built major beauty businesses. Kourtney has Push and Lemmy. Khloe has Good American. Kendall has her modeling career and 818 Tequila. She has had other collaborations and projects, but modeling remains one of the biggest parts of her public identity. And that means her appearance has enormous financial value. This is where I think the conversation gets complicated. If your career depends on your face, would you feel pressure to change it? Especially if you grew up being criticized for your appearance? Especially if you watched your sisters constantly changing their looks? Especially if the entire family culture around you involves beauty treatments, makeup, fillers, Botox, and cosmetic procedures? That pressure could be enormous. And Kendall has never been shy about discussing how difficult it was growing up with acne. She also had to deal with people comparing her appearance with Kylie. And that comparison must have been brutal. Kylie became famous for her transformation. Her lips became one of the biggest beauty stories on the internet. Her appearance changed dramatically, and eventually she publicly acknowledged getting lip fillers. Meanwhile, Kendall remained the natural sister in the eyes of many people. But that image became increasingly difficult for people online to accept. Then you have the old photographs. Kendall's lips appear different. Her nose appears different. Her brows appear different. Her overall facial proportions appear different. And because she has spent so much of her life in front of cameras, there are thousands of photographs available for people to compare. That's why Reddit threads and TikTok videos constantly appear analyzing her face. People compare one year with another. They circle different features. They ask doctors for opinions. They create before and after collages. And then Kendall responds by saying that people are making assumptions about procedures she says she hasn't had. This is where I think there's a legitimate conversation to be had without automatically declaring that every rumor is true. Because celebrities are allowed to keep medical information private. They don't know the public a complete list of every treatment they've ever received. But there's another side to this. When a celebrity becomes a beauty icon, young people naturally look at them and think, I want to look like that. And if they believe the appearance is completely natural, that can create unrealistic expectations. That's the part that concerns me. Because imagine being 16 years old, looking at Kendall Jenner and thinking, why don't I look like her? You might think she simply won the genetic lottery. You might think her cheekbones, lips, nose, and facial structure are completely natural. And then you spend years trying to recreate something that may not actually be achievable naturally. That's where transparency becomes important. Not because celebrities owe us their private medical records, but because beauty standards have consequences. And Kendall herself has actually spoken about how damaging it can be when young people feel pressured into cosmetic procedures. She has criticized online speculation about celebrities' faces and has argued that these kinds of discussions can encourage young women to become obsessed with changing themselves. And honestly, I can understand that argument. But this is also where the internet gets complicated. Because if you don't talk about what you've had done, people will speculate. If you do talk about it, people might copy you. There really isn't a perfect answer. Then there's Kendall's modeling career. She has been incredibly successful, but she has also faced criticism because of her family background. The term Nepo baby has followed her for years. Some established models have questioned whether Kendall belongs in the same category as models who built their careers without a famous family behind them. And that criticism isn't going away. But regardless of how you feel about Kendall's modeling career, she clearly has become one of the most recognizable models in the world. And her face is one of the reasons why. That's why I think her transformation is fascinating. Maybe she didn't change her face because she wanted to become a model. Maybe modeling simply became one of the biggest benefits of becoming more comfortable with the way she looked. Maybe she was dealing with insecurity long before she became famous enough for people to analyze every millimeter of her face. Maybe she simply wanted to feel more attractive. And honestly, that's human. Most people want to feel good about themselves. The problem begins when beauty becomes the solution to every emotional problem. If you don't like your nose, change it. Don't like your lips, fill them. Don't like your skin, treat it. Don't like your face shape, alter it. Eventually, you can get trapped in the idea that there is always another improvement waiting. And that's something we've seen across the beauty industry. The perfect face keeps moving. What was considered beautiful 10 years ago isn't necessarily considered beautiful today. And Kendall has grown up right in the middle of that culture. From the early Kardashian era to Instagram beauty to the current TikTok era, she has watched beauty standards change constantly. So when people look at her old photographs and say, she doesn't even look like the same person, maybe that's not entirely surprising. She grew up. She became an adult. Her makeup changed. Her hair changed. Her body changed. Her career changed. And, according to the speculation that surrounds her, she may also have explored cosmetic treatments. But unless Kendall herself confirms a particular procedure, we shouldn't present internet theories as medical fact. What we can say is that her appearance has clearly evolved, and that evolution has become part of her story. I also think there's something sad about the way the internet talks about women's faces. A woman can be beautiful at 15, beautiful at 25, and beautiful at 35, but the internet will still put her photographs side by side and ask what happened. Did she get work done? Did she age? Did she lose weight? Did she gain weight? Did she have Botox? Did she have fillers? Did she have surgery? At some point, maybe we should ask why we're so obsessed with finding something wrong with somebody's face. Kendall has openly talked about struggling with acne and self-esteem. She has grown up under enormous scrutiny. And whether or not she has had the procedures people claim she has, one thing is obvious. She has spent a huge portion of her life being judged on how she looks. That alone can affect somebody. So yes, Kendall Jenner's face has changed. There is no question that her appearance today is different from the teenager we watched on television years ago. But the reasons behind every change are not something we can know simply by looking at photographs. Maybe it's makeup. Maybe it's aging. Maybe it's professional beauty treatments. Maybe there are procedures she has acknowledged and others she hasn't. Only Kendall knows the full story. And perhaps the more interesting question isn't, what did Kendall Jenner do to her face? Maybe it's, why has the world become so obsessed with making women prove how they became beautiful? Because that's the real story here. Kendall grew up believing, like millions of other young women, that appearance mattered. She struggled with acne. She struggled with confidence. She entered an industry where her face and body were literally her resume. And now millions of people are analyzing that same face, looking for evidence of what changed. Maybe that's the cycle we should actually be talking about. Because if a young woman spends her childhood being told she's not beautiful enough, and then spends adulthood being criticized for becoming beautiful in a different way, what exactly are we asking her to do? At some point, she can't win. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know what you think about Kendall's transformation. Do you think her appearance has changed dramatically over the years? Or do you think makeup, aging, styling, and lighting explain more than people realize? I'll see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.